Chapter 21. The car jolted as it navigated the one-way dirt road. They were now driving in an SUV that Sadar had acquired during their stop for a late lunch. Yet the larger frame did not seem to do anything to help them over the uneven road full of large rocks and potholes. They had driven off the freeway onto a highway an hour ago. Sadar had been tight-lipped about where they were going. Alicia held on to hope that he had come up with a safe place for them to hide until they could work out what to do. When they turned off the paved road onto the dirt road, the late afternoon sun became hidden behind the trees that overlooked them, and the car was enshrouded in shadows. "What are we doing out here?" Alicia demanded. The car bounced, causing them to rocket up towards the roof. Alicia, for the third time in the last 5 minutes, checked to make sure that Kenny was safely buckled in his seat. "Tell me where we're going." The car slowed, and Sadar twisted back in his seat to look at Alicia, his face tight as he spoke. "This is not the easiest road to drive on. Would you please let me focus on driving so that nothing happens to either of you?" Then he turned around and put all his focus on the road in front of him. Alicia sat, quiet. It had been a reasonable request, one that she had to have made many times while she was behind the wheel as well. But the way he spoke the words sent a shiver down her spine. The atmosphere didn't help either. The trees had grown over the road, so their limbs now hit the roof. The car echoed with the pattering of their light touches, offset by the high-pitched screech of a branch desperate to tear through. Kenny's slim arms wrapped around Alicia's arm, holding her in a death grip. His head tilted away from her, so all she could see was the mop of his hair as he looked out the window, watching the trees crawl past them. They broke free from the forest, the trees releasing them with a suddenness that was startling. Before them was a small brown house, wrapped around by a porch with sections of railings that were missing. The windows were caked in dirt so thick that you couldn't see through them. The roof was in disrepair with a giant hole where a tree limb was growing through it. "What are we doing here?" Alicia asked in confusion. "I am hoping to talk to someone that can help us." "You can't be serious," Alicia said. "No one could possibly live in that." "Not everything is as it appears." Sadar turned off the car, cutting off the headlights as he opened his door. "I think it is best that you both wait in the car." "I don't want to stay here," Kenny said, his voice quivering. He was still clinging to his mother, his brown eyes lit up with fear. The area around the house was surrounded by trees so high that it was hard to see the sky above. What light of the day remained was no longer visible to them, and with the headlights off, there was very little light to see by. "I think we should go in with you," Alicia said, her voice wavering. Sadar looked at them huddled in the back seat and then grunted, "Fine," before he got out of the car, slamming his door behind him. Alicia hurried and unbuckled herself and Kenny. She grabbed her son's hand and got out of the car, hurrying to catch up to Sadar. They had reached him just as he was knocking on the door. The knock gave back a deep, solid thunk that echoed in the silence. It was at odds with the door, which looked to be made of wood so rotten it was ready to collapse. They waited in the near dark for an answer that didn't come. "Are you sure there is someone here?" Alicia asked. As she spoke, the door opened as if on its own. Sadar pushed it open further and walked inside. Alicia followed, Kenny still in her arms, and then stopped in awe. The door revealed a large living room with vaulted ceilings. There was a large wraparound couch in the middle of the floor with plenty of walking room between it and the walls, littered with bookshelves and a small piano. On the far side of the couch there was a reclining chair next to a fireplace with a full blaze. In the chair there was an older man, a book held firmly in his slender, bronzed hands. He looked at them from behind a set of glasses that did nothing to hide his penetrating gaze. "Why are you here?" His voice was deep and loud, filling up the room. "I tried to get a hold of you," Sadar said. The man looked at Alicia. Her mouth opened in shock as she realized that there were rooms connecting from this main room. How could this all fit? "Why have you brought a human into my house?" His gaze slid off of Alicia and onto the boy in her arms. The book dropped from his hand, and he half rose from the chair. "What is this?" he demanded. "I need to find the king. I know you are aware of where he is." "I do not have dealings with him," the man said. At the same time, Alicia spoke. "I told you we are not going to him." Her attention was now completely focused on the conversation. "The human has more sense than you do," He had managed to make it to his feet and grabbed a cane propped up on the chair arm. He walked slowly but steadily toward them until he stopped a foot away from Kenny. He reached his hand up as if he were going to touch the child, and then stopped in midair. "Who is he?" "We need to find the king. Tell us where he is." For once, Sadar's voice did not sound certain, and Alicia looked at him in concern. Sadar began to move between them and the man, pushing them towards the door. "You could stay here," the man said. "The house is hidden behind walls of illusions. They would never be able to find you. I could help the child." The man began to leer as he spoke, his voice full of possessiveness. "If there is magic, they will be able to sense it." The words fumbled from Alicia as she began to slowly move back towards the door. One hand supported her son, who clung to her. The other reached behind her, searching for the doorknob. "Have you taught them nothing?" The man let out a cackle, a sound that ripped through her soul, a sound no human could make. "You would be safe here from the king. I have enough power to mask this child so they wouldn't sense him, more than what this bloodbound has managed. When the king finds you, there is no way he will let that child live. He looks too much like him to not be his blood, and all his relatives have met untimely accidents in the last few years." Alicia's hand wrapped around the doorknob as she opened it. Sadar blocked their way from the old man as they slipped out the door. "What are you talking about?" she heard Sadar say before the door closed again and his words were cut off. Alicia sprinted towards the car. She opened the driver's door and put down her son. "Get in your seat," she commanded. She waited just long enough for him to climb into the back seat before she was in the driver's seat, throwing on her seatbelt and closing the door. She didn't even have time to be relieved when she found the keys in the ignition. She started the car, trying to turn the car around fast enough to be gone before the men inside could notice. "Are you clicked?" she asked her son. "I'm clicked," he said. She sped up, going down the dirt road as fast as she could without blowing out a tire. Their bodies danced in the seats, but it still seemed too slow. She kept glancing in the rearview mirror, expecting to see Sadar looming above them. She didn't remember letting out a breath until they made it back out to the paved road, and then she drove for all the car was worth.